of you wondering, I haven't gotten the last call up, but I will get it up today because it's ready to go. Anyway, hello everybody. It's Nanette Kennedy and friends with Humanity's Team and Evolution Revolution. And today we are starting Book 3, Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. And I, for one, am looking forward to it because I haven't reread these books in a long time. So this is going to be really good and good for the soul. And Linda is going to read, and we really appreciate you doing that. And the way this works, if you have a question or something confuses you, you can raise your hand literally, or there's a place where you can raise your hand if you look at the participants, and then we'll take it from there. And otherwise, Linda will stop here and there and say, does anybody have any comments or questions?
But feel free to interrupt me too, because I can't see the screen when I'm reading. So if you've raised your hand, someone else will have to call on you. Okay. So I don't mind. Just, jump in and interrupt me if there's something that gets read that you want to stop and talk about.
Okay. Let's go ahead and begin.
All right. Well, this is Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch, Volume 3 or Book 3. The dedication is to Nancy Fleming Walsch. Best friend, dear companion, passionate lover, and wonderful wife, who has brought me and taught me more than any human being on earth. I am blessed in thee beyond my highest dream. You have made my soul sing again. You have shown me love in miracle form, and you have given me back to myself. I humbly dedicate this book to you, my greatest teacher. Acknowledgments. As always, I wish first to thank my best friend, God. I hope one day that everyone can have a friendship with God. Next, I acknowledge and thank my wonderful life partner, Nancy, to whom this book is dedicated. When I think of Nancy, my words of gratitude seem feeble next to her deeds, and I feel stuck not being able to find a way to express how really extraordinary she is. This much I know. My work would not have been possible without her. Then I wish to acknowledge Robert S. Friedman, publisher at Hampton Roads Publishing Company, for his courage in first placing this material before the public in 1995 and in publishing all volumes of the Conversations with God trilogy. His decision to accept a manuscript that was rejected by 4 other publishers has changed the lives of millions. And I can't let the moment of this last installment in the Conversations with God trilogy pass without acknowledging the extraordinary contribution to its publication made by Jonathan Friedman, whose clarity of vision, intensity of purpose, depths of spiritual understanding, endless well of enthusiasm, and monumental gift of creativity is in large measure the reason Conversations with God made its way to bookshelves when it did, how it did. It was Jonathan Friedman who recognized the enormity of this message and its importance. Hang on a second. I gotta mute my thing and I gotta clear my. It was Jonathan Friedman who recognized the enormity of this message and its importance, predicting that it would be read by millions, foreseeing that it would become a classic of spiritual literature. It was his determination which produced the timing and design of Conversations with God, and his unwavering dedication, which has much to do with the effectiveness of its initial distribution. All lovers of Conversation with God are forever indebted to Jonathan, as am I. I wish to thank Matthew Friedman also for his tireless work on this project from the beginning, The value of his co-creative efforts in design and production cannot be overstated. Finally, I want to acknowledge some of the authors and teachers whose work has so altered the philosophical and spiritual landscape of America and the world, and who inspire me daily with their commitment to telling a larger truth, regardless of the pressures and personal complications that such a decision creates. To Joan Borinchenko, Deepak Chopra, Dr. Larry Dossey, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, Barbara Marx Hubbard, Stephen Levine, Dr. Raymond Moody, James Redfield, Dr. Bernie Siegel, Dr. Brian Weiss, Marion Williamson, and Gary Zukav, all of whom I have come to personally know and deeply respect. I pass on the thanks of a grateful public and my personal appreciation and admiration. These are some of our modern day way showers. These are the pathfinders, and if I have been able to embark on a personal journey as a public declarer of eternal truth, it is because they, and others like them, who I have not met, have made it possible. Their work stands as testimony to the extraordinary brilliance of the light in all our souls. They have demonstrated what I have merely talked about. This is an extraordinary book. I say that as someone who has had very little to do with writing it. All I did really was show up, ask a few questions, and then take dictation. So this is the introduction now. That is all I have done since 1992, when this conversation with God began. It was in that year that, deeply depressed, I called out in anguish, what does it take to make life work? And what have I done to deserve a life of such continual struggle? I wrote those questions out on a yellow legal pad in an angry letter to God. To my shock and surprise, God answered. The reply came in the form of words whispered in my mind by a voiceless voice. I was fortunate enough to have written those words down. I have done so now for over 6 years, and since I was told that this private dialogue would one day become a book, I sent the first batch of those words to a publisher in late 1994. They were on store shelves 7 months later, at this writing, that book has been on the New York Times bestseller list for 91 weeks. The second installment in the dialogue became a bestseller as well, also making the Times list for multiple months. And now, here is the third and final portion of this extraordinary conversation. This book took 4 years to write. It did not come easily. The gaps between the months of inspiration were enormous, more than once stretching across a half-year canyon. The words in the first book were dedicated over the course of 1 year. The second book came through in just a little over that much time. But this final segment has had to be written with me in the public spotlight. Everywhere I've gone since 1996, all I've heard has been, when's book 3 coming out? Where's book 3? When can we expect book 3? You can imagine what this did to me and what impact this had on the process of bringing it through. I might as well have been making love on the pitcher's mound in Yankee Stadium. Actually, that act would have afforded me more privacy. In the writing of book 3, every time I picked up a pen, I felt I had 5 million people watching, waiting, hanging on every word. All of this is not to congratulate myself on completing this work, but rather to simply explain why it has taken so long. My moments of mental, spiritual, and physical solitude have been, over these most recent years, very few and far between. I began this book in the spring of 1994, and all of the early narrative was written in that time period, then leaps across many months, ultimately jumping forward a full year, and finally culminating with the closing chapters written in the spring and summer of 1998. On much of this you can depend. This book was not forced out by any means. The inspiration either came clearly or I simply put the pen down and refused to write. In one case, for well over 14 months. I was determined to produce no book at all if it was to be a choice between that and a book I had to produce because I said I would. While this made my publisher a bit nervous, it went a long way toward giving me the confidence in what was coming through, however long it was taking. I present it now with confidence to you. This book sums up the teachings in the first 2 installments of this trilogy, and then it carries them forward to their logical and breathtaking conclusion. If you've read the foreword in either of the first 2 installments, you know that in each case, I was a little bit apprehensive, scared, actually, of what the response to those writings might be. I am not scared now. I have no fear whatsoever about Book 3. I know that it will touch many of those who read it, read it with insight and its truth, its warmth and its love. I believe this book. I believe this to be sacred spiritual material. I see now that this is true of the entire trilogy, and that these books will be read and studied for decades, even generations, perhaps for centuries. Because when taken together, the trilogy covers an amazing range of topics, from how to make relationships work to the nature of ultimate reality and the cosmology of the universe. And it includes observations on life, death, romance, marriage, sex, partnering, health, education, economics, spirituality and religion, life work and right livelihood, physics, time, social mores and customs, the process of creation, our relationship with God, ecology, crime and punishment, life in highly evolved societies of the cosmos, right and wrong, cultural myths and cultural ethics, the soul, soul partners, the nature of genuine love, the way to glorious expression of the part of ourselves that knows divinity as our natural heritage. My prayer is that you receive benefit from this work. Blessed be. Neil Donald Walsh, Ashland, Oregon, September 1998. Anybody have anything they want to talk about before we start? Chapter 1?
I wanted to mention something. I have the introduction of July 2003, and I think the last page is interesting if you would like me to read, but
Sure.
I'm afraid my accent could impede. But I think it just enriched what Neil wrote in 98.
Sure.
Yeah? I read it? This book is for the brave. I'm starting in the middle where it will be new. This book is for the brave, not for the timid. It is for the courageous, not the overly cautious. It is for the visionary, not the short-sighted. For it envisions a world in which love is the answer to every question, in which fear of God has been abandoned forever as the basis of theology, and in which fear of each other has been rejected utterly as a rationale for economic, political, and social conventions. On these pages are descriptions of highly evolved beings and highly evolved societies, wonderful beginning suggestions for how our own human culture might reorganize themselves so to achieve humanity's highest goals and live humanity's grandest dream at last. So take this book and read it thoroughly. Then read it again, and one more time still. Absorb its contents. Ponder deeply its wisdom. Hold closely its secret, that the truth lies within you, as does all the power you will ever need to change the direction of your life and the course of human history. If ever human history could use a course correction, it is now. Where have we headed? Into more of that from which we have just emerged? Into more strife and anger and violence and killing? Into more suffering and squalor for the masses while the few lives of obscene wastefulness? Into more dysfunction and chaos as the systems we've created continue to break down one by one? Let these be our questions for the day. Then allow the answers to come through you as you, and use all the resources at your command, all the tools at your disposal, all the insight you can muster, and all the wisdom you can draw to you, as you have done with this book, to recreate yourself and your world anew in the next grandest version of the greatest vision ever you held about who you are. Be the miracle for which you pray. Be the strength for which you call out. Be the love for which you yearn. And be on the change you wish to see. Be it. Be all that you can seek for the world and end your search at last, knowing that everything for which you looked, you always possessed, but simply could not experience until you gave it away. I'm back now, here, on the journey of Conversations with God, Book 3, a book that you called to you at this exact moment, as a means of remembering all of this and more. Travel back in time with me now, to the moment when this present book was first given to humanity, and savor the fact that its wisdom has been gifted to you by you at this moment, for its wisdom is more applicable now than ever before. Neil Donald Walsh, Eastern Oregon, July 2003. I give you back the reading, Linda.
Beautiful, beautiful. No, I'm glad you read that. It's good to know that he wrote a new introduction. Okay.
I think it was worth it.
I was just going to say, and I'm not going to read it, but I have another introduction, or acknowledgments and introduction, that was written in 2013. But I'm not going to, I think we've got a good picture here of what's going on. But thank you.
Okay, chapter 1. It's Easter Sunday, 1994, and I'm here, pen in hand, as instructed. I'm waiting for God. He promised to show up, as she has for the past 2 Easters, to begin another year-long conversation. Their third and last, for now. This process, this extraordinary communication, began in 1992, and it will complete on Easter 1995. 3 books, 3 years. The first dealt with largely personal matters, romantic relationships, finding one's right work, dealing with the powerful energies of money, love, sex, and God, and how to integrate them into our daily lives. The second expanded on those themes, moving outward to major geopolitical considerations, the nature of governments, creating a world without war, the basis for a unified international society. This third and final part of the trilogy will focus, I am told, on the largest questions facing man. Concepts dealing with other realms, other dimensions, and how the whole intricate weave fits together. The progression has been individual truths, global truths, universal truths. As with the first 2 manuscripts, I have no idea where this is going. The process is simple. I put pen to paper, ask a question, and see what thoughts come to my mind. If nothing's there, if no words are given to me, I put everything away until another day. The whole process took about a year for the first book, over a year for the second. That book is still in process as this has begun. I expect this will be the most important book of all. For the first time since starting this process, I'm feeling very self-conscious about it. 2 months have passed since I wrote those first words, 4 or 5 paragraphs. 2 months since Easter, and nothing has come. Nothing but self-consciousness. I've spent weeks reviewing and correcting errors in the typeset manuscript of the first book in its trilogy, and just this week received the final corrected version of book 1, only to have to send it back to typesetting again, with 43 separate errors to correct. The second book, meanwhile, is still in handwritten form, was completed only last week. 2 months behind schedule. It was supposed to be done by Easter 94. This book, begun on Easter Sunday, in spite of the fact that Book 2 was unfinished, has languished in its folder ever since, and now that Book 2 is complete, cries out for attention. Yet for the first time since 1992, when this all began, I seem to be resisting this process, if not almost resisting it. I'm feeling trapped by the assignment, and I'd never like to do anything if I have to. Further, having distributed to a few people uncorrected copies of the first manuscript and heard their reactions to it, I'm now convinced that all 3 of these books will be widely read, thoroughly examined, analyzed for theological relevance, and passionately debated for dozens of years. That has made it very difficult to come to this page, very difficult to consider this pen my friend. For a while, I know this material must be brought through. I know that I am opening myself up to the most scurrilous of attacks, the ridicule, and perhaps even the hatred of many people for daring to put forth such information, much less for daring to announce that it is coming to me directly from God. I think my greatest fear at all is that I will prove to be inadequate, inappropriate spokesperson for God, given the seemingly endless series of mistakes and misdeeds which have marked my life and characterized my behavior. For those who have known me from my past, including former wives and my children, would have every right to step forward and denounce these writings based on my lackluster performance as a human being in the simple, rudimentary functions of husband and father. I have failed miserably at this, and at other aspects of life, having to do with friendship and integrity, industry and responsibility. I am, in short, keenly aware that I am not worthy to represent myself as a man of God or messenger of truth. I should be the last person to assume such a role or even presume to. I do an injustice to the truth by presuming to speak it when my whole life has been a testimony to my weakness. For these reasons, I ask that you relieve me of my duties as your scribe, God, and that you find someone else whose life renders them worthy of such an honor. Well, I should like to finish what we started here. Though you are under no obligation to do so, you have no duties to me or to anyone else, though I see that your thought that you do has led you to much guilt. I've let people down, including my children. Everything that has happened in your life has happened perfectly in order for you and all the souls involved with you to grow in exactly the way you've needed and wanted to grow. That is the perfect out, constructed by everyone in the New Age who wishes to escape responsibility for their actions and avoid any unpleasant outcomes. I feel that I've been selfish, incredibly selfish, most of my life, doing what pleases me, regardless of its impact on others. There's nothing wrong in doing what pleases you. But so many people have been hurt, let down. There's only one question of what pleases you most. You seem to be saying that what pleases you most are behaviors which do little or no damage to others. Well, that's putting it mildly. On purpose. You must learn to be gentle with yourself and stop judging yourself. Well, that's hard, particularly when others are so ready to judge. I feel I'm going to be an embarrassment to you, to the truth, and if I insist on completing and publishing this trilogy, that I will be such a poor ambassador for your message as to discredit it. You cannot discredit truth. Truth is truth, and it can be neither proven nor disproven. It simply is. The wonder and the beauty of my message cannot and will not be affected by what people think of you. Indeed, you are one of the best ambassadors, because you have lived your life in a way that you call less than perfect. People can relate to you, even as they judge you. And if they see that you are truly sincere, they can even forgive you your sordid past. Yet I tell you this, so as long as you are still worried about what others think of you, you will be owned by them. Only when you require no approval from outside yourself can you own yourself. Well, my concern is more for the message than for me. I was concerned that the message would get besmirched. If you are concerned about the message, then get the message out. Don't worry about besmirching it. The message will speak for itself. Remember what I have taught you. It is not nearly so important how well a message is received as how well it is sent. Remember this also. You teach what you have to learn. It is not necessary to have achieved perfection to speak of perfection. It is not necessary to have achieved mastery to speak of mastery. It is not necessary to have achieved the highest level of evolution to speak of the highest level of evolution. Seek only to be genuine. Strive to be sincere. If you wish to undo all the damage you imagine yourself to have done, demonstrate that in your actions. Do what you can. Then let it rest. Well, that's easier said than done. Sometimes I feel so guilty. Guilt and fear are the only enemies of man. Well, guilt is important. Guilt tells us what's wrong, what we've done wrong. There is no such thing as wrong. There is only that which does not serve you, does not speak the truth about who you are and who you choose to be. Guilt is the feeling that keeps you stuck in who you are not. But guilt is the feeling that at least lets us notice when we've gone astray. Awareness is what you're talking about, not guilt. I tell you this, guilt is a blight upon the land, the poison that kills the plant. You will not grow through guilt, only shrivel and die. Awareness is what you seek. Be aware, but awareness is not guilt, and love is not fear. Guilt and fear, I say again, are your only enemies. Love and awareness are your true friends. Yet do not confuse the one with the other, for one will kill you, while the other gives you life. So then I should not feel guilty about anything? Never, ever. What good is there in that? It only allows you not to love yourself. And that kills any chance that you can love another. And I should fear nothing? Fear and caution are two different things. Be cautious, be conscious, but do not be fearful. For fear only paralyzes, while consciousness mobilizes. Be mobilized, not paralyzed. Well, I was always taught to fear God. I know. And you have been paralyzed in your relationships with me ever since. It is only when you stop fearing me that you could create any kind of meaningful relationship with me. If I could give you any gift, any special grace that would allow you to find me, it would be fearlessness. Blessed are the fearless, for they shall know God. That means that you must be fearless enough to drop what you think you know about God. You must be fearless enough to step away from what others have told you about God. You must be fearless enough that you can dare to enter into your own experience of God. And then you must not feel guilty about it. When your own experience is violating what you thought you knew and what everyone else has told you about God, you must not feel guilty. Fear and guilt are the only enemies of man. Yet there are those who say that to do as you suggest is trafficking with the devil, that only the devil would do such a thing. There is no devil. Well, that's something else the devil would say. The devil would say everything that God says. Is that it? Only more cleverly. The devil is more clever than God? Well, let's say more cunning. So the devil connives by saying what God would say? Well, with just like a little twist, just enough to get one off the path, to lead one astray. I think we have to have a little talk about the devil. Well, we talked a lot about it in book 1. Not enough, apparently. Besides, there may be those who haven't read book 1, or book 2 for that matter. So I think a good place for us to start, for us to begin, would be to summarize some of the truths found in those books. That will set the stage for the larger universal truths in this third book. And we'll get to the devil again, too, early on. I want you to know how and why such an entity was invented. Okay, all right, you win. I'm ready. I'm already into the dialogue, so apparently it's going to continue. But there's one thing people should know as I enter this third conversation. Half a year has passed since I wrote those first words presented here. It's now November 25th, 1994, the day after Thanksgiving. It's taken 25 weeks to get this far. 25 weeks since your last words above, to my words in this paragraph. A lot has happened in those 25 weeks. But one thing that has not happened is that this book is not moving 1 inch forward. Why is it taking so long? Do you see how you block yourself? Do you see how you can sabotage yourself? Do you see how you can stop yourself in your tracks just when you're onto something good? You've been doing this your whole life. Hey, now wait a minute. I am not the one who's been stalling on this project. I can't do anything, can't write a single word unless I feel moved, unless I feel, well, I hate to use the word, but I guess I have to, inspired to come to this yellow pad and continue. And inspiration is your department, not mine. I see. So you think I've been stalling, not you? Yes, something like that. My wonderful friend, this is so much like you and other humans. You sit on your hands for half a year, doing nothing about your highest good, actually pushing it from you, then blaming someone or something outside of yourself for you not getting anywhere. Do you see a pattern here? Well, I tell you this, there is never a time when I am not with you, never a moment when I am not ready. Have I not told you this before? Well, yeah, but I'm always with you, even unto the end of time. Yet I will not impose my will on you ever. I choose your highest good for you, but above that, I choose your will for you. And this is the surest measure of love. When I want for you what you want for you, then I truly love you. When I want for you what I want for you, then I am loving me through you. So, too, by the same nature, can you determine whether others love you and whether you truly love others. For love chooses not for itself, but only seeks to make possible the choices of the beloved other. That seems to directly contradict what you put in book 1 about love not being all concerned with what the other is being, doing, and having, but only with what the self is being, doing, and having. That brings up other questions as well, like, well, what if the parent who shouts at the child, get out of the street, or better yet, risks his own life to run out into the swirling traffic and snatch the child up? What of that parent? Is she not loving her child? Yet she's imposed her own will. Remember, the child was in the street because it wanted to be. How do you explain these contradictions? Sorry, it just jumped here. Hang on. There is no contradiction. Yet you cannot see the harmony. And you will not understand this divine contradiction about love until you understand that my highest choice for me is the same as your highest choice for you. And that is because you and I are one. You see, the divine doctrine is also a divine dichotomy. And that is because life itself is a dichotomy, an experience within which two apparently contradictory truths can exist in the same space at the same time. In this case, the apparently contradictory truths are that you and I are separate and that you and I are one. The same apparent contradiction appears in the relationship between you and everyone else. I stand by what I said in book 1. The biggest mistake people make in human relationships is to be concerned for what the other person is wanting, being, doing, or having. Be concerned only for thyself. What is the self being, doing, or having? What is the self wanting, needing, choosing? What is the highest choice for the self? I also stand by another statement that I made in that book. The highest choice for the self becomes the highest choice for another when the self realizes there is no one else. This mistake, therefore, is in not choosing what is best for you, but rather in not knowing what is best. This stems from not knowing who you really are, much less who you are seeking to be. I don't understand. Well, let me give you an illustration. If you're seeking to win the Indianapolis 500, driving 150 miles an hour might be what's best for you. If you're seeking to get to the grocery store safely, it might not. You're saying it's all contextual? Yes. Yes. All of life is. What is best depends on who you are and who you seek to be. You cannot intelligently choose what is best for you until you intelligently decide who and what you are. Now, I, as God, know what I am seeking to be. Therefore, I know what is best for me. And what is that? Tell me, what is best for God? This ought to be interesting. What is best for me is giving you what you decide is best for you. Because what I'm trying to be is myself expressed. And I am being this through you. Are you following this? Yes, believe it or not, I actually am. Good. Now I'll tell you something you may find difficult to believe. I am always giving you what is best for you, though I admit that you may not always know it. This mystery clears up a bit now that you've begun to understand what I'm up to. I am God. I am the goddess. I am the supreme being, the all of everything, the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. I am the sum and the substance, the question and the answer, the up and the down of it, the left and the right, the here and the now, the before and the after. I am the light, and I am the darkness that creates the light and makes it possible. I am the goodness without end. I am the badness which makes the goodness good. I am all of these things and all of everything, and I cannot experience any part of myself without experiencing all of myself. And this is what you do not understand about me. You want to make me the one and not the other, the high and not the low, the good and not the bad. Yet in denying half of me, you deny half of yourself. And in so doing, you can never be who you really are. I am the magnificent everything. And what I am seeking to know myself, and what I am seeking is to know myself experientially. I am doing this through you and through everything else that exists. And I am experiencing myself as magnificent through the choices I make. For each choice is self-creative. Each choice is definitive. Each choice represents me. That is, represents me. as who I choose to be right now. Yet I cannot choose to be magnificent unless there is something to choose from. Some part of me must be less than magnificent for me to choose the part of me which is magnificent. So it is with you. I am God in the act of creating myself, and so too are you. This is what your soul longs to do. This is that for which your spirit hungers. Where I stop you from having what you choose, I would stop myself from having what I choose. For my greatest desire is to experience myself as what I am. And as I carefully and painstakingly explained in Book 1, I can only do that in the space of what I am not. And so I have carefully created what I am not in order that I may experience what I am. Yet I am everything I create. Therefore, I am, in a sense, what I am not. How can somebody be what they're not? Easy. You do it all the time. Just watch your behaviors. Seek to understand this. There is nothing that I am not. Therefore, what I am, and I am what I am not. I am what I am, and I am what I am not. This is the divine dichotomy. This is the divine mystery, which, until now, only the most sublime minds could understand. I've revealed it for you here in a way that more can understand. This was the message of Book 1, and this basic truth you must understand. You must deeply know if you are to understand and know even more sublime truths to come here in Book 3. Yet let me now get to one of those more sublime truths, for it is contained in the answer to the second part of your question. I was hoping we were going to get back to that part of the question. How is the parent loving the child if he says or does what is best for the child, even if he has to thwart the child's own will to do it? Or does the parent demonstrate that truest love by letting the child play in traffic? This is a wonderful question, and it's the question asked by every parent in some form or another since parenting began. The answer is the same for you as a parent as it is for me as God. So what is the answer? Patience, my son, patience. All good things come to those who wait. Have you never heard of that? Yes, my father used to say it, and I hated it. I can understand that. But do have patience with yourself, especially if your choices are not bringing you what you think you want. The answer to the second part of your question, for example. You say that you want the answer, but you're not choosing it. You know you are not choosing it because you do not experience having it. In truth, you have the answer and have had it all along. You are simply not choosing it. You are choosing to believe you do not know the answer, and so you do not. Yes, you went over this too in Book 1. I have everything I choose to have right now, including a complete understanding of God, and yet I will not experience that I have it until I know I do. Precisely. You put it perfectly. But how can I know that I do until I experience that I do? How can I have something I haven't experienced? Wasn't there a great mind that said all knowing is experience? He was wrong. Knowing does not follow experience, it precedes it. In this, half the world has it backwards. So you mean that I have to have the answer to the second part of the question? I just don't know that I do? Exactly. Yet if I don't know that I do, then I don't. That's the paradox, yes. I don't get it, except that I do. Indeed. So how can I get to this place of knowing that I know something I don't know? I don't know that I know. To know that you know, act as if you do. You mentioned something about that in Book 1 also. Yes, a good place to start would be to recap what's gone on before in the previous teaching. And you just happen to be asking the right questions, allowing me to summarize in short form at the beginning of this book the information we discussed in the prior material in some detail. Now in book 1, we talked about be, do, have paradigm and how most people have reversed it. Most people believe that they have a thing, if they have a thing, more time, more money, more love, whatever, then they can finally do a thing, write a book, take up a hobby, go on vacation, buy a home, undertake a relationship, which will allow them to be a thing, happy, peaceful, content, or in love. In actuality, they are reversing the be, do, have paradigm. In the universe, as it really is, as opposed to how you think it is, havingness does not produce beingness, but the other way around. First, you be the thing called happy, or knowing, or wise, or compassionate, or whatever. Then you start doing things from this place of beingness, and soon you discover that what you are doing winds up bringing you the things you've always wanted to have. The way to set this creative process, and that's what it is, the process of creation, into motion, is to look at what you want to have. Ask yourself what you think you would be if you had that. Then go straight to being. In this way, you reverse what you've been using, the be, do, have paradigm, in actuality, set it right and work with, rather against, the creative power of the universe. Here is a short way of stating this principle. In life, you do not have to do anything. It is all a question of what you are being. So this is one of the 3 messages I will touch on again at the end of our dialogue. I will close the book with it. For now, and to illustrate this, think of a person who just knows that if he could only have a little more time, a little more money, or a little more love, he'd be truly happy.
Let's stop there.
Okay.
I am. There's so many good passages that you've read. We've only got a few minutes left, but I was wanting to know if anybody wanted to make some comments. For anybody who was raised in the Catholic Church, the fear and guilt thing just goes so hand in hand with being raised that way. But I have re-identified myself as I go to the Nanette Rogers Kennedy of Catholic churches. I take the things I like and I tune out the rest. But I was thinking about, just for quote purposes, fear and guilt, I say again, are your only enemies. Love and awareness are your true friends. Yet do not confuse the one with the other, for one will kill you while the other gives you life. And let's see here. Be mobilized, not paralyzed, which is very apropos for what's going on around the world. Let's see. And I think this is another really good one. I tell you this, there is never a time when I am not with you, never a moment when I am not ready. For love chooses not for itself, but only seeks to make possible the choices of the beloved other. And it was interesting to me, and it's like I said, it's not the first time I've read it, but God says, and so I carefully created what I am not, in order that I might experience what I am. Yet I am everything I create, therefore I am, in a sense, what I'm not. It's kind of a mind bender.
When I was little,
go ahead.
People, I learned the concept of guilt, but it never resonated with me, even as a very small child, because of my connection and being awake at that age. I always knew that inherently, no matter what I did, I was trying to be my best. And I could never wrap my head around, well, why would I feel bad if I'm always just trying to be my best? If I screw up, well, I screwed up, but why should I feel bad about that? Why should I beat myself up over it if I was always trying to be my best? And so I was able to escape guilt. I don't feel guilt. I've never felt guilt, but it's something that's so common and that it's so ingrained in people. It's one of the biggest things we have to overcome, I think.
Diane, you're on mute. Unmute you.
Yeah.
There you
Okay.
go.
Okay. I was not able to do it. Sorry. Linda, I envy you. Guilt has been the worst weight in my life. I know it's my fault. I feel guilty about being guilty. I think that this first chapter really address what are the most difficult thing for us human beings in relationship to God, and to go ahead and to complete your quotes, Nanette, about continuing the last issue about being what is not or she's not. And that is what you do not understand about me. You want to make me the one and not the other, the I and not the low, the good and not the bad. Yet in denying half of me, you deny half of yourself. And in so doing, you can never be who you really are. And I think we'll still have a lot to struggle with that, because it goes completely against all the religious teachings of all churches, which separate bad and good. And when we have a problem with guilt, it makes it even worse. So I just think that it is very good that God decided to revise this again. And I know she will go ahead with the devil. And even though I know what's coming in, I know I will have to struggle with it again. It's kind of if we would need a complete brainwash about that. And I have no answer. I just wanted to.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Okay, I'm complete.
Hi, Nanette, it's Angela. Can you hear me?
I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Yeah, I was looking for those words about creating what I am not. And he says, my greatest desire is to experience myself as what I am, and as I carefully and painstakingly explained in Book 1, I can only do that in the space of what I am not. And so I have carefully created what I am not in order that I might experience what I am. So we do that ourselves. We create what we are not around us in order that we can be what we are. So, for instance, if I say I am generous, in order for me to be generous, I need to have people around me who are in need in order that I can be generous to them. So that's what we do. The experience that we have, we are creating those experiences ourselves. We are putting ourselves in those positions. And it does say there that you need to understand this. This was the message of book 1, and this basic truth you must understand. You must deeply know if you are to understand and know the even more sublime truths to come here in book 3. So we do need to get our head around that, and I think I understand it a bit better now having read it tonight.
Well, I think you helped me just wrap my head around it a little bit better. Go ahead, Diane.
Yeah, I have a doubt about it. I'm not sure that she says that to feel that I am generous, then I need to create people in need. I feel more that I also have to be non-generous, also have to be selfish, to know of myself that I can't want not to share anything with anyone. And since I'm able to hold that, then I can feel the difference of what it is to be generous. I don't think it has to do with an external reality where other people need. I think that God here talk about her nature, her reality. Then comes also the co-creation of the external reality. But I think we should start with the first part of it, which has to do with self.
Christine, were you going to say something? I saw you lighting up, but I wasn't sure.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, I agree with parts of what both you and Angela have said. It made me think, because I'm a very visual person, that if I want to experience the inside of my home, then let me see if I can get this straight. I have to experience what's not the inside of my home.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but we have run a couple of minutes over. Does anybody have any parting words?
I would just say the way that I internalize it is that everything is divine. It's all divine. It's all God. And so, you know, as the day moves through, or as we move through our day, the things that we find triggering us, if we can stop and be in the space of, this is also God, and allow that feeling of that connection to come through, I think for me, it's easier to find my beingness when I hold that consciousness that it's all divine.
You know, I think it'd be worth maybe opening next time, discussing what we're discussing right now. Because when I hear somebody else say something, it makes me think of another analogy. I'm sure that's the same for everybody else here. And I think the divine dichotomy is that we're all one. And I just want to leave it right there. Till next time.
Sounds good.
All right. Anybody else? Final thoughts? Okay. Love you all. Love this group. Glad we
Love you all too. Bye
all
now.
Right. Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Have a good week.
Bye-bye.